It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
He's the impression of the session. Here now to give his impression of the session 2019, we've got State Representative Mickey Gates on the line. Mickey, welcome back to the program, sir.
Good morning. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's start with just generally, State Representative Mickey Gates, what was your impression of the session?
It went very smoothly. It was a smooth session. It was somewhat disappointing to me. There are so many disappointing moments that of advantages that we could have taken advantage of, but didn't. We did get some good things passed. We got some really important things passed, but there were some things that I was disappointed in that I think with the supermajority we should have been able to pull off better and do better, but we just didn't do that.
So you are one of few Republicans in the House, Representative Gates. You voted against three bills that I think substantially grow government by trying to get revenue from the people. One would be the levy on the half-cent% sales tax that's said to expire. We send it back to the people for them to make sure they make sure that you want it to sunset. Then you voted also against internet sales tax and against the gas tax increase. How did you come to those conclusions in light of the fact that the leadership had a lot of arguments for each one of these bills as to why you needed to vote to get more money from the people?
Well, I as a principle, I'm not opposed to the people voting for themselves on what rate they're taxed. I overall support that idea. In fact, I think even though we live in a representative form of government, some thinks it's weak for us to make the decision ourselves. But I think on something that is important as raising taxes, I'm not opposed to the people voting for themselves and living with whatever decision they make. So the principle of allowing the people themselves to vote is not offensive to me. However, I was in county government 20 years and now in my fifth year in the legislature. I'm not going to go to the people with a recommendation of a tax until I believe all other options have been utilized. And because for me to refer something to the people to say, hey, we don't have enough money for this, is exactly that. And I think that there are other monies that could be expended towards the roads, to speak of. There were, I think, four of us that had a bill that signed off on a bill that didn't raise taxes. There's some stuff that could have been done, I think, before that. The idea of the internet tax, I voted against the internet tax, maybe a little different reason than some others that voted against it. I'm not against the tax. Personally, I'm not against the tax. It's the system of the taxation. And very seldom will you ever hear me say that this is a federal issue. But interstate commerce is a federal issue. And the reason why is, let's say Arkansas imposes a $5 penalty on anybody that ships into Arkansas and doesn't include a statement saying you have to report this to your state DFNA. Well, let's say Colorado decides to do that, or California. Well, you can't tell our people what to do. You don't have any jurisdiction over me. So we pass a law that says if you're from Colorado and you're a business and you send into Arkansas, and then we start penalizing the people from Colorado or wherever passed that law, then they go to their legislature and say, let's impose a $50 penalty. You get states pitting against each other, and that is why you have, that is why you have interstate commerce laws, not intrastate, interstate commerce laws. Mm-hmm. And the other reason, anybody that's had the pleasure and the joy of dealing with DFA, can you imagine if you're accountable to 49 other DFAs? Can you imagine what it's like when they impose their will, sometimes arbitrarily, without justification, and to come after you with the full extent of the taxpayers' money? Can you imagine having 50 of those and not just one?
Yeah, it's a disaster, and likewise, it sets a dangerous precedent in terms of, okay, it's fine for an internet tax, but what if California doesn't like Arkansas coal plants? And what
are they going to do? A Green New Deal tax on us?
Yeah.
And well, we need to have a Blue New Deal or a Red New Deal or something. And it's until the federal government has the moral will, until our Congress has a moral will to establish a tax system, reporting system, collection system that is fair and non-punitive, that doesn't make me accountable to 40. Can you imagine? I would have 49 other governments. I would have 49 other tax numbers. I would have 49 deadlines. I would have 49 sets of rules and regulations that I'm obligated to know, comply with, and keep updated on.
And that's kind of what I thought from the time the Supreme Court reversed its precedent, which I disagreed with, based on the very thing that you're talking about. What it will do, State Representative Gates, is create that chaos that you're talking about, and then it gives the government the will to step in and again take more money from the people. Now, on that just general issue, the 92nd General Assembly, in your impression of the session, do you think the people of Arkansas, after this session, are paying more money to the government in terms of a net? Was it a net tax increase? Was it a net tax cut? What do you think?
I'm not an economist and I'm not the numbers guys. When you have a bill that adds here and another bill that deducts here, because there's no defining lines of everything, my impression when we walk away with, there would probably be a slight increase in tax. And I don't know. It may be one of those that we'll have to wait 4 or 5 years to say what the net effect is. But there was some good. There was some good legislation. There was some good tax cuts. But I know there were some increases also, and I don't know what the net effect of them. I don't know what the net bottom line is going to be once they're all added up.
Yeah, and there were some good things. I thought it was good that we did have the income tax cut. It was a straight income tax cut, like you said. There's all this, and I actually have the numbers. If you use DFNA's own numbers and that first fiscal year,
I have no confidence. I have no confidence in DFA numbers.
Well, even their own numbers.
I know. I have no confidence. I mean, you look at what they did to Les Warren. Go find the last Friday right before not Sunny Day, but when we closed on a Wednesday, and for a couple of weeks, go look at the Friday before. Go look at rev and tax on the Senate end. You'll see a hatchet job. DFA brought a bill to Representative Warren, and it had to do with, I think it was not a state, trust funds and taxes collected, and I don't know all the inner workings of it, but brought him a bill, said, hey, we realize that we've been collecting this tax, and we've never been authorized by the legislature to collect the tax, and we want you to have this bill that will actually authorize us to collect this tax. And so it got passed on the House end, we get it down to the Senate end, and they put a $15 or $20 million price tag on it, and on their own bill that they had Les Warren bring, and said it was a cleanup bill, and Senator Dismains just ripped them. I mean, just tore into them and said, don't bring us a bill and then put a $20 million price tag and say this is a cleanup bill. This is not a cleanup bill. DFNA, they had one opposition on the bill. There was a paragraph in there that they eventually took out to get it passed that said that the director was never authorized to collect the tax. And they didn't like that in that. They didn't like it in the statute. Even though it wasn't going to be codified, they wanted that paragraph taken out, that the director never was authorized to collect the tax. And that's what they negotiate out. Go look at it. It's on video. I mean, I just sit there dumbfounded. They didn't mind any other language except the language that said we were never authorized. Well, were you authorized or not? And if you were authorized, why are we having a bill to authorize it?
That's an excellent point. Yeah.
And that is just, why did they put a $20 million? Talk to Representative Warren. That, from what I understand from him, and he was in the trust business, that's a pass-through tax, and it's not going to have a $20 million tax on it. So it's just, and it goes back to other taxes. If the internet sales tax had passed from other states, to whom do I appeal? To whom do I have representation? I think we had this little party in Boston, kind of in the harbor, that said, "Wait, where is the taxation without representation?" The Magna Carta, I think, was kind of blown out of the water, saying, and they said, "Hey, we've got taxation without representation," and that's exactly what we have.
Yeah.
So
no, I think you're right in that sense, and I remember what happened with what you're talking about with the DFNA on that trust issue, and it was interesting. It seemed to me that they come to Les Warren, and then they start looking into it. Les starts doing his due diligence, and he realizes
he did what was supposed to be done. They just didn't like. But and that's the problem. If you add something they don't approve, then they put this big price tag on it, and it's just outlandish.
I think what we've seen here, because we had on the internet tax trying to use we use DFNA's own numbers. We put together, actually, it's going to be a net tax increase. The bill itself, a net tax increase in fiscal year 1, fiscal year 2. They try to dispute their own numbers before committee. I mean, that happened before. So it seems to me, State Representative Mickey Gates, in this session, I think we saw DFNA become much more political instead of being just, kind of neutral.
I don't think they're any more political. I just think people's eyes are being opened and to saying, if they don't like it, they just put a huge price tag on it. And it's just, it's just like, go look at John Payton, Representative Payton's bill. John Payton had a bill that said that a used vehicle, the sales tax on a used vehicle exemption, which is now $4,000, any vehicle purchased below $4,000, there is no sales tax on it. And it was going to raise that exemption to $7,500. He had more legislators sign off on that. I think it was like 89 legislators were co-sponsors. 89 in the House. When have we saw 89 co-sponsors on a not on a resolution, not a feel-good resolution, but on an actual bill, and passed overwhelmingly on the House side, and gets down to the Senate and it gets killed. And that is where you say, why? Well, because it costs $12 million. Well, we find $12 million for everything else. We put that in slush funds. We put that in other places. Why can't we give the hurting people of Arkansas a tax break? And that's a real tax break, because any car purchased below $7,500 would have no sales tax on the sales tax that's already been collected on it, sometimes 2 or 3 other times.
And we can kind of use this to go into the social issues real quick, because this was something I think that a lot of people thought was also a social issue, because it would help lower income people be able to buy a car that's been taxed 2 or 3 times already.
Yeah.
But on the social issues front, there were some really positive things that were done. Talk about that.
Yes, there were. We expanded the right to the protection of the right to life to the unborn. That's always a positive. The first of our sacred liberties is the right to life. There are no other liberties that have any weight if you be dead. Mm-hmm. Your right to property, your right to free speech, your right to freedom of religion. None of those are practiced. You can't practice any of those if you're dead. So the practice of protecting life is our foremost responsibility of government. And this session, we expanded those protections in defending life, defending our right to borders, as a nation, and protecting ourselves against cities that want to become sanctuary cities.
Yes.
For all the grief that the president gets, I thought it was applicable when he said that he would start releasing ICE detainees in sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
I saw no problem with that.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
think you ought to go to the downtown in their pristine locations where they don't want homeless people to hang out because it's bad for their image, and that's where you open the bus doors and you just let them go because they're not going to arrest them. That's their policy.
Yep, and there you go.
And then just pick them up, take them back, pick them up, take them back, and see how long the people will suffer that kind of policy.
Well, State Representative Mickey Gates, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your no votes again on these three measures that I mentioned earlier that I think were fundamentally growths in the size of government because they take more money from the people. And
they do grow government.
And that's what we don't want. And so I appreciate your no votes on those, and I appreciate you coming on the program. Hope you have a great week, sir.
Thank you. You too. Have a great day.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.